All right, students, good morning, or good night, or good evening, or wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to another live stream. It's been a few weeks since we've done one of these. I was out away from my computer, but welcome back. If you guys haven't been with us before for a live stream, please make sure you give me a thumbs up or a hello in the chat, just so we know who's here. If you don't want to, talk in the chat, that's fine as well. You guys can just follow along. We will be looking at SAT test number 9, test form 9. Now, I'm sure some of you guys have taken that before. That's not really a big deal right now because we're not doing one of those real-time videos. We are solely looking at this from a how do you guys master the grammar rules, the most important ones, the ones that show up at all times on the SAT writing and language section. Because if you get those down, not only do you go into every test knowing that, of the 44 questions, you're going to get 12 at least of those 44 right. If you memorize these grammar rules, there's 100% certainty that you can get 12 out of 44 right before you even start the test. That's a great, great confidence builder as you start the exam. But on top of that, it's going to make sure that you can answer those quickly, right? Quickly and efficiently and accurately so that it saves you some more time for some of those writing and language main idea and organization questions. The one that like, should the author place this sentence here, right? What's the most logical place for this paragraph? All those questions. If you memorize these grammar rules, these 3 grammar rules that we talk about today, I promise that you will find this test to be far, far easier and your score will immediately go up. I promise that. Okay? So can everybody give me a thumbs up on that? On the second thing that I want to talk about today, and again, if you haven't been with us before and you feel comfortable with the live chat, you guys should see that on the side. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And then you should see just a hello or say something in the chat if you guys are here. Or if you plan to ask questions, again, if you plan to follow along, you don't need to say anything. But just so I can address you while we're going through this. The second thing that I want to make sure that we all do before we get started, because it is going to be so important, and for those of you that have been with us before, and for those of you that have used our programs before, you guys will know how adamant I am about using Star U. That's written and edited all by our current teachers and tutors. Hey, Sean. Hey, guys. Pratham, welcome. I assume, yeah, guys, welcome. Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody's downloaded Star U. Create a student account. It is free. It takes 5 minutes at most to create a student account. You guys can use Google to sign in. You guys can use Apple, so it's very easy. And then on the home page, everything that we talk about today, okay, Anonymous, yeah, well, hey, that's awesome. If anything, maybe you can speak to Anonymous. Maybe you can speak to how helpful. No, it's all, guys, Anonymous is a great example here. And again, that's what I'm going to refer to you, she, or he as. But when you guys look at this, you have to make sure that you are putting in the work. If anybody gets a 31 on the ACT, right, or a 1350 plus score on the SAT, I am very, very glad that these videos are helping and that I can show you guys stuff, but it is all about your hard work to actually implement those things. Because ultimately, I'm not the one that's taking the test, right? I know these things work. I've done this for long enough. I've worked for enough companies. I know how these things work, and I know that what we're talking about is objective. This is mathematical certainties. I absolutely despise, which is why we started Star Tutors in the first place, when a teacher or somebody that's supposed to be educating you tells you that you're doing it wrong. Now, if you're doing it wrong and that is a subjective opinion, if it's objective, if we're going off of math, like here's the score and here's how you get your score and this is what's going to be on the test, then yeah, you can't argue with the teacher on that because that's just, you can choose to argue and your score will go down. But when it's something about like which strategy you should use, you got to try a lot of these. Do I think our strategies are the best? Yes, but I'm definitely partial on that. That's a subjective opinion. Do I think that objectively what we talk about today on these grammar rules is the best way to approach this test? Absolutely, and that's not arguable. Because these items that we talk about today are going to show up on every SAT writing and language section. They've never not shown up. Let's just say it that way. In the last 5 years, there hasn't been a single SAT test that we've seen that we haven't seen a single SAT that hasn't. And Sean, yes, absolutely, guys. If you guys are looking to download Star U, so here's the link on your computer. If you guys are looking to register on Star U on your computer. So guys, yeah, we had some trouble downloading Star U desktop computer version. If you guys are having trouble downloading on your phone for whatever reason, different parts, different places and different devices, right? Like it's hard to keep up with all the different devices and trying to get it approved by Apple or Google. So if you guys are having trouble downloading it on your phone, that link that I just posted in the chat, and it's also posted in the description below, that will take you to the one that you see on my screen right now is the computer version. Why I bring this all up is because if you click lessons and practice problems on the home screen, and then you slide over to SAT, and then SAT writing and language, that's 3 steps, and this is all free. The 3 most important grammar rules are given to you right here for free in very, very strong detail. Now, we're not going to be able to read through all of this section today, but all of this content right here that is free, right? This is the point that I'm making, that Anonymous and somebody else said this. Yeah, right, guys. This is, if you put in the time and the effort, you're just going to do better. It's all free right here. We're going to talk about pronouns today. We're going to talk about punctuation today, and we're going to talk about apostrophes today. And if you just put in the time and the effort to read through this and then do the 5 lesson problems that correspond to pronouns work, you're going to do better. It's that easy, especially on the writing and language section. Okay, does that make sense, guys? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? So again, this is free to download. I don't know why you wouldn't. Our whole mission, if you guys have watched our videos before, is to make sure that you guys have as many free resources as we can possibly give you. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you can help us spread the word about this channel, please help us. Because the more the more people that subscribe, the more opportunities we have to produce videos, and we can do these daily with enough subscribers. So that's what I'll leave you with. Again, I'm not trying to promote any of this stuff too much. If you guys are interested in joining our membership program, you can do that as well. It's $3 a month, and that certainly helps us create more of these videos. So, yeah, good question about reading rules in the future. We'll probably do a lesson. We have a few good videos on the reading section right now. But yeah, you're right. I mean, for anybody that's taking the SAT reading section in particular, doesn't have a ton of rules. Unfortunately, it's so much just about being like really, really narrowly focused. If you guys are interested in checking out a good SAT reading video that's more about, sorry guys, let me see if I can find this. If you're looking at SAT reading that's maybe more in depth about hardest, here we go. That's like more instructional than those real-time ones. SAT reading, how to approach the hardest questions. Yeah, so that's the hardest question types. But yeah, again, as you guys mentioned, it's a little hard. Yeah, Vishu, I'll try to share those. We've had some trouble just because it's just a lot of effort for sharing these past videos, like where we actually annotate on the screen, because it's, there's copyright issues and all this kind of stuff. So we're still working through that. But if I get to a point where I can share like what I'm actually writing on the screen here, so you guys can just take those in a notes folder like on Google Drive, then I absolutely will. But again, we've after somebody suggested that in one of the previous videos we have. So awesome, guys. Yeah, any recommendations? That's awesome. But AirPod, if you want to take a look at that, you can. So in any case, guys, again, Star U, Sean, Sean, can you confirm that worked? The link on your computer, did that work? Okay, Sean. If you guys are interested, I posted the link on the desktop version. I posted the. Oh, Alex, sorry, I saw your comment there. Alex, if you're going to take the SAT or the ACT and you're trying to apply to American universities, then absolutely you should be here and you can take these. What we're talking about today, the SAT and the ACT are all, in the writing and language section, are all based on American entrance exams for American universities. So, yeah, guys, again, if Star U's not working for you on your phone, you guys can do this, and you can do this on your phone as well, but here's the web version here. Okay, so that's the web version. Yeah, it's still trying to load. I'm not sure what's going on, guys. Depending on where you are in security within your computer too, that can always have an effect. That's just all. Okay, yeah, maybe try creating a new account instead of using Google or Apple, but I'm not sure what's going on. We looked into it, Sean, because I saw your Google Play. I saw your thing on Google Play and how it wasn't downloading for you, so I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but we've been looking into it and we're trying to figure it out. It could be a device thing. It could be a security preferences thing on your computer, your phone. So continue to look into that, but it appears to be, we haven't had any big app crashes or anything. In any case, guys, Sean, let me know if, maybe try, again, guys, if you guys create an account without using Google or Apple, maybe that'll work, just manually creating the account at the bottom, getting out of it and refreshing the page and getting back in, and trying to manually create the account. I'm sorry that there's any issues. But again, let's try to stay SAT writing and language. Again, lessons and practice problems. Not ACT English, but rather SAT writing and language. And here are all of the examples. Okay, so you guys can read through these, and we're going to talk about the 3 most important ones today. So SAT test number 9 is the test form that we're going to be using. I'm going to pin that to the top of the page, top of the chat. Please make sure, guys, that you have that SAT test number 9 downloaded at the very least. And without further ado, we'll get started here. Okay. Yeah, Vishu, the other sources that you look for are just like Reddit. If you guys are looking on Reddit, you guys can usually find the previous practice tests that we sometimes post on here. So I'd look on Reddit because they apparently don't have the copyright issues. They're not worried about the copyright issues. Okay, guys, so here we go. So this is SAT test number 9. Okay, and again, we're specifically looking at the writing and language section, SAT writing and language. Okay. And you guys I highly encourage you to take notes as often as you can. Okay, SAT, writing, and language. And these are the 3 most important grammar rules that you can possibly know. Okay, that these show up on every single SAT writing and language section. But maybe even more importantly, you can guarantee that between these 3, number 1 is without doubt punctuation. Okay, you have to know your punctuation rules. That will show up 8 times, probably out of 44 questions. 20% of the questions will deal specifically with punctuation rules. Okay, and sentence structure. Right, punctuation. Number 2 is pronouns. These will show up not as often as punctuation, but they show up on every SAT writing and language section. And number 3 is apostrophes. Okay, number 3 is apostrophes. And just to give you guys some perspective, okay, on how helpful this can be. And how I'm convinced that if you put in the hard work and you put in the effort, you will always do well on this. If you do those 3, so let's just say there are, out of the 44 questions, 30 out of 44, right? 30 out of 44 are equal to grammar, okay? If you guys want to write down, this is a true statement, these are grammar rules. And they're called rules for a reason. You can almost approach the writing and language test, for anybody that's a really good math student, you can approach the writing and language test very much like you approach the math section. It might not be as easy, right? It might not be as fun to learn these rules because you might already be great at math, but you can do it is the point. It's just rules-based questions, 30 out of 44 of those. Okay, on the writing and language section, you have 44 questions and you have 35 minutes to complete those. Okay, so roughly speaking, let's call that 1.2 minutes, right, per question. I'm sorry, 1.2 questions per minute, rather. Good math, Chase. Good start. I'm an idiot sometimes, guys. For anybody that's been with us before, that's nothing new to you. Okay, 1.2 questions per minute, just to give you guys some perspective. Okay, and yeah, I'll try to give you guys some extra tips on other parts of the test, but I just want to focus on these 3 items first, because if you get these 3 down, this is how important and impactful this can be. So 1.2 questions per minute. Roughly speaking, 1 question, right, per, let's say, 50 seconds. You have 50 seconds per question on the SAT writing and language section, roughly. Now, if you have all of your grammar rules memorized, right, who can tell me, if you have all of your grammar rules memorized, how long do those questions take? Right, how long does a grammar question take if you have all the rules memorized? I'm going to say, conservatively, let's say 25 seconds. Right, if you have the grammar rule memorized, you know exactly what the question type is, you have 25 seconds to answer that, but you're given 50. So think about the power. Again, we talk about this objectively, mathematically. I never want to tell you guys something where it can be argued. 25 seconds might be too much even, right? Even call it 30 seconds. Let's make it really, really so that, right, if you have every grammar rule memorized, it's not going to take you more than 30 seconds to answer one of those questions. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Sean, that's actually exactly right? Sean, I'm even going up. 30 seconds, perfect. So Sean says 30 seconds, that's exactly right. So let's say Sean memorizes all 30 of the grammar questions that could possibly show up. Okay, 30 seconds, 30 questions, that's only 900 seconds, right? 900 seconds is 15 minutes. Think about that, right? That means that you only took 15 minutes to answer all of the grammar questions, right? And you can still be really accurate because those are rules-based questions. That means you have another 20 minutes, right? 20 minutes for 14 organization questions. Think about that. Instead of having less than a minute, right? You typically have less than a minute to work on these. On average, you have less than a minute. Instead, now you almost have between a minute and 15 and a minute and 30 seconds. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? That if you just spend the time to memorize the grammar rules, and what we're going to talk about today comprises 12 to 15, let's say, out of 30. 12 to 15 out of those 30 grammar questions are dealing with these 3 rules that we're talking about today. It's so important that we memorize that. Okay? So that's what I want to bring up first. That if you spend the time and you spend the effort to really memorize these, then you have so much time on those writing and language, or on the organization and main idea, or the vocab questions, to really take your time and think about each one of those questions, which is absolutely critical. Okay, so let's talk about punctuation first, because that is by far the most important, and you're going to see it. So again, everybody should have SAT test number 9. We're looking at test 9, and I posted this. This is pinned to the top of the page. SAT test number 9. And here's the order in which you should approach punctuation. This is all listed out on the app, those app pages for punctuation, so you guys can find this under Star U, right, and find it in the punctuation section. But if you don't want to, if you don't download the app, or unfortunately, it sounds like some of you are still unavailable to download it, and we're going to keep looking into that. But if you look at the punctuation section, these are the only 5 grammar rules that are tested, 5 punctuation pieces or punctuation marks that are tested on the SAT. Okay, and I'll list these not in order. Okay, but first we have periods, right? We are tested on periods from time to time. We're tested on commas. And as I write these guys, these 5, can anybody tell me which is the one that we should always look at first? When we look at our answer choices, which is the one that we should, or which are the few that we should look at first? Right? We have colons, we have semicolons, and we have dashes. Right? Those are the 5. Those are the only pieces of punctuation, minus like very obscure, maybe one obscure reference. Okay, but those are really the only pieces of punctuation that you're going to see on the SAT writing and language section. All right? Now, why is this important? Because if you had to guess, 95% of the students that we have in our programs, or that we see on YouTube, 95% of students start with which one of these pieces of punctuation? Which would you guess? Okay, of those 5 that I just listed out, right? Of these 5, most students start with which one? Would you guess? Yeah, guys. Yeah, Mohammed. Yes. After the stream is over, after any of these streams are over, guys, these will all be listed on our channel. Yeah, and Mohammed, perfect, right? 95% of the students in our programs, everybody perfect, Sean. That's exactly right. 95% start with commas. Okay, and this is why we wanted to do this video. Commas are the last piece of punctuation that you want to look at. Okay, so number 1, and I'll show you guys why here in a second, and this can be really powerful in terms of the number of questions you have. Praneeth, exactly. Right, everybody wants to start with commas. Commas have by far the most number of rules on when they can be used. Okay, so you see commas so often, and that's why everybody wants to start with them, is because you see them so often in literature. When you're reading, you see commas often. But that's because they have so many rules. You can use commas in so many different situations. So that would be the last place that we want to start. Whereas the first 3 that you want to look for, right, period and semicolon, these are for the purposes of the SAT, okay, it's not 100% true like if you get into higher level grammar. For the purposes of the SAT, these are exactly the same. Okay, they are the same, meaning that if you see them in the same place on the test, they are both wrong. They cannot be right because they mean the exact same thing, and there's only one rule that you need to look out for. If you see a period or a semicolon in the answer choices, start with that answer choice. Okay, because they only can have a full sentence followed by another full sentence. All you need to do when you see a period or a semicolon in the answer choice, don't immediately look to the passage. Look to the answer choices first, because if you see this, right, or if you see a period in the exact same format, all you need to do is read to the left of it, read to the right of it, and ask yourself, is there a full sentence on both sides of that both sides? Sean, exactly right. Periods and semicolons, right? Does that make sense? Can everybody give me a thumbs up? There's only one rule. Each of these has one rule, and number 3, actually, the colon, also only has one rule. And that's why you should be looking out for these 3 first and foremost always. Because if the right answer is a semicolon or a period, then boom, that's or a colon, that's done in 1 second. There's only one thing you're looking out for each of those 3 things. Right? If you're starting with a comma, you have to go through 5 different rules. And lo and behold, once you eliminate a lot of these answers by starting in this way, right? Once you eliminate a lot of these answers, suddenly the comma rule is you can tell right away if it's going to be the comma. Like if it's not a full sentence on both sides, right? Then you just eliminate that answer and like, oh, it's got to be a comma. There needs to be some punctuation here, but it's not a semicolon because I checked the rule, right? So a semicolon and a period need a full sentence, right? And you're just looking to the left, you're reading it, you're looking to the right, you're reading it. And that's something that most students don't think about because we learned how to use a period when we were like 3rd graders, right? We learned how to use a period when we were 3rd graders, so we don't think about it. Like, we don't think about it really in depth like this. But it's still the same thing that it's always been. Is there a full sentence before the period? Is there a full sentence after it? Boom, that's the right answer. So lo and behold, again, I told you guys that all of these are going to be, so let's look at a couple of answers, right? Test number 9, on any given SAT writing and language section, you're going to find these. Okay, look at this, right? Right away on number 6, now most students want to start with a comma, right? We see on number 6, if this is SAT Test 9, Writing and Language Section 2, okay, already at question number 6, we have a semicolon issue. So look at the semicolon. Yeah, independent clause. Maria, yeah, it's an independent clause. For anybody that, like the technical term, right, independent clause, because a semicolon is not really separating 2 full sentences, but we just say full sentences so that you're looking out, so that when you read it, you're not thinking about an independent clause, but yes, an independent clause is a full sentence, right? It can stand on its own. So yes, a full sentence, when we say full sentence going forward, guys, it's a good clarification thing, so I'm glad you brought it up. Full sentence, sometimes I forget to mention that. Full sentence isn't equal to an independent clause, but we don't need to think about it as an independent clause, because the reason I use full sentence in these videos is because that's really what it is. We're looking for a full sentence to see if it can stand on its own. So look, right away, we're going to start with on number 6. We're not going to start with A, C, and D. We have a semicolon. We said that those were one. We don't have a period, so we got to check the semicolon issue. Okay, so this one says, low-high shrimp, originally thought to exist only around an undersea volcano near Hawaii. Now, I get that the dash might be an easy one here, right? Because we already see a dash up here. That's still not what we're going to do. If you guys want to get better at this section, okay, if you guys want to get better at this section, then you start with the semicolon every time, and we move from there, okay? So it's not B. Does everybody see that? Because if I look on the left side, right, we would assume that the semicolon was here. Low-high shrimp, originally thought to exist only around an undersea volcano near Hawaii. Is that a full sentence? Can that stand on its own? No. Right? There's no finite verb in that. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Why it can't be B? And Muhammad, right? And everybody, and Maria, does that make sense, by the way? Can you give me a thumbs up, Maria, when I say full sentence independent clause? But that's a good clarification because you're right. Technically, from a grammatical perspective, it's called independent clauses. But everybody wants to jump to the right answer. Now, I realize that if you know the dash rules, it's going to be easy to see that C is the right answer because of the dash. But you don't want to do it that way. You can choose to do it your own way, or if you start with a semicolon every time, then this question, which is really easy because the dash is already present above, right? Or if there was a comma there, then A would be the right answer. Don't do that, though. Discipline yourself to not do that no matter what the question is. Look at the answer choices first, find a semicolon, and then go from there, right? Because it's not always going to be that easy. Let me give you another example, right, where it might not be as easy. Okay, right here, right, most students want to go through number 12, okay, most students want to go through number 12 and just start by looking at A. Right away on number 12, I see that there's a semicolon. So let's go back and let's see on number 12 right here, right, instead of a comma and a but, which we already know it's probably not going to be D, right, because of fanboys and a comma fanboys conjunction. But this says, right, we're going to stick to our rules and we're going to read on the left side of the semicolon and see what it says. One radical proposal some planners have considered is to make public transportation free to passengers. While fare-free policies do increase ridership, is that a full sentence? While fare-free policies do increase ridership, is that an independent clause? No. Right, it's not. Okay? And now we can go under our comma rules, and because we have a fanboys conjunction on both A and B, we know the answer has to be C, and I barely read that sentence. That has nothing to do with me being smarter than you, or you being smarter than me, or the next person being smarter than somebody else. It has everything to do with the fact that if you're stay disciplined and you know that what a semicolon does and you're committed to what it does, you can't miss that question. Like 12 is so easy every time because this same exact question with just different words is going to show up on the next test and the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And if you start with semicolons, boom, we eliminate that one. Then we realize that we have a comma, right, followed by a fanboys conjunction, which is another thing we'll talk about when we get to commas. This also separates two full sentences, right? Okay, you can eliminate A and B, right, on number 12 because this comma, right, comma and comma but are fanboys. That's the A and the B and fanboys conjunctions, right? Conjunction, junction, what's your function? For anybody that ever seen that Schoolhouse Rocks video. Those also separate two full sentences. A comma, it's called a compound sentence, right? And it does the same thing. Now, that's not always what a comma rule does, so we have to know a ton of comma rules. But beyond that, those do the same thing as a semicolon. We're going to get to comma usage at the end of this, guys, but I want to start with the idea that commas are the last thing we should be looking at. Okay? Look, here we go. Guys, through the first 14 questions, let me show you this. Through the first 14 questions, 3 out of the first 14 have dealt directly with punctuation. Lo and behold, look what we have here. Here's a period. Okay, guys, look. This is the exact example that I was talking about. I'm not making this up. I haven't looked at SAT test number 9 in forever. You could pick any test on any given day and send it to me 1 second before these live streams happen, and the same rules will show up. I guarantee it. Does everybody see that without ever looking at this question, I can eliminate A and D? Right? We always said we're going to start with a period, and then answer choice A has a semicolon. If they do the same thing, right? A semicolon has a full sentence, and a period has a full sentence. They for the SAT purposes, right? When you're writing in literature, they're like a semicolon separates two closely related independent clauses, but that's subjective. What you think is closely related is different than what I think. So they're never going to test you on which one should be used, a period versus a semicolon. For the purposes of the SAT, they're the same thing. So if I see that there's a full sentence, right? And I see that there's a period and a semicolon in the same spot like I do on number 14, without even reading the question, if you learn these and you think about this, it can't be A or D. Can everybody give me a thumbs up? Because that question will also, that exact question type, will show up on every single test that you take. It will show up with the period and the semicolon in the same place. And I can't tell you how often we see students they're debating between the period and the semicolon when without even reading, if you study this, right, and you watch these videos and you're really diligent with your preparation and disciplined while you're taking the test, you just can't miss that question. And not even reading this one, I could almost guess it was B. And the reason I say that is because when we get to the colon rule, I'm not even going to read it. When we get to the colon rule, it's very similar to the semicolon and period, but not quite the same. So let's go back to the colon real quick, right? Because we said that we we're going to look at the colons too. A colon is very similar to a semicolon and a period, with one exception. When you see a colon on the SAT, you have a full sentence, right? An independent clause, colon, and then everybody thinks that what has to come after the colon, right, is a list. That is true, that a list can happen, right? When you're going camping, you bring the following items: a flashlight, a tent, right? Flashlight, comma, colon, flashlight, tent, blah, 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 right? It's a list. But a colon is a very flexible piece of punctuation. You can do a million different things with a colon. Okay, so it can be a list, but on the other side of a colon, on the right side, you could also have a full sentence. You could have one word, right? You could have a phrase. So if you see all of these things, right, if you know that they're testing you on all of these things, then they're probably not going to be looking at the right side of the colon, right? They're looking to see that if you know that a colon can only be used if on the left side, the only thing that's important with a colon is on the left side, is there a full sentence? Does that make sense? Okay, thumbs up. So all they're looking for, so the question, this one on test number 9, I didn't just guess that because I was looking through this test right before we started. I just knew that the chances that this, because this shows up on so many different SAT writing language tests, if you just study this, right, the chances that they put a period in a semicolon in an answer choice and then they include a colon to try to throw you off is so likely. And without even reading, we could eliminate A and D. The chances that there's a full sentence on the left side of this colon and there's not one on the right are very high. We've seen this question before. So let's look at 14. Okay, so let's see. In 2013, Tallinn, Estonia instituted fare free rides for city residents, becoming the largest city in the world to do so, but car use in Tallinn also has only slightly declined. Is there a full sentence? There's actually a compound sentence on this side of the colon. So yes, there's a full sentence on this side of the colon. Right? There is a full sentence on this side of the colon. Check. 99.999% of the time, it's going to be B. We can read the other side if we want, but it says, as a 2014 study is found that it was down less than 3%, it was enacted. Right? When we start those sentences with the word as, we know it's a dependent clause, so that's not going to be a full sentence. And so the answer is B for number 14. That is, when you go through this, the ability to go through this, okay? The ability to go through this, guys, is look at number 14, and that's going to be a level 3 question. The SAT is going to always consider this a level 3 question. And if you study enough, if you practice enough, and you have these rules down so well, and you recognize this question is easy enough that you don't even have to look at the sentence. You have to, you know A and D are wrong, so yeah, maybe you have to go back, but I could take a guess. I was 85 to 90% sure the answer is going to be B there. A comma doesn't work in C because remember, guys, a comma can't separate two independent clauses. And if you have an independent clause leading to a dependent clause, right, independent to a dependent, you do not need a comma. Okay, so this word as starts a dependent clause. And no, you can't use a comma between an independent and a dependent. Every one of these, okay? Yeah, B has a, sorry guys, if you can't see that, B has a colon here. I just circled over it so often. Okay, but every single one of these is going to keep showing up on this test. Every time. Okay, B has a colon there because there's a full sentence before it. Okay, does that make sense? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? There's our 3 rules. The 3 most important rules can be covered in an hour, and if you're committed to those rules, some of the hardest questions as labeled by the SAT can be eliminated very quickly. Yeah, if you, Mohammed, yeah, you can use a comma if it's dependent to independent, but not if it's independent to dependent. Then you don't use a comma. A colon can be followed by a phrase, and that's the point, guys. It's a good question. A colon can be followed by there's really nothing that a colon cannot be followed by, and the SAT knows that. And so they're trying to throw you off with what comes after the colon, where if you watch this video enough and you study these rules, the only thing that you need to remember about a colon is that what comes before it. In grade school, right, in elementary and middle school, we're always so focused on what comes after the colon, the list or whatever's coming. It doesn't matter. It's a full sentence before that the SAT is testing you on. That's what the colon rule is. So, I mean, think about the power of that. That a level 3 SAT writing and language question, right, 3 out of 3, can be done without actually looking at the sentences if you know your punctuation rules. That's the power of it all. And not to mention that within the first 14 questions, we've already seen 3 questions dealing with exactly what we're talking about today. Let's see if we can find another one. I don't know if there's any more on this. Yeah, right here, guys. I mean, look how many times this comes up, right? Without looking at the answers, everybody try number 17 for me. This is another really good question, right? That all of this can be found in Star U. All of this can be found on Star U. There's no restrictions after the colon. You don't need to worry about what comes after the colon. That's the beauty of it, right? A semicolon and a period, yes, you do need to worry about it. A colon, you only need to worry about is there a full sentence before it because it's very flexible. Everything that comes after it, it can be a phrase, it can be a list, it could be another full sentence. A colon can actually separate 2 full sentences as well, just like a semicolon can. but it's way more flexible than a semicolon or a period. It can do anything really after it. You don't need to worry about what comes after it because it could be really anything. And they would never test you if there's something that I'm forgetting where it can't be after it, which I don't think there is with the colon. But if there happens to be something that I'm forgetting, it will never show up on the SAT. It's all about the first one. No, not necessarily. Hey guys, yeah, so if you guys look through this, yeah, guys, if you look through this, yeah, you'll see that if you look through Star U, right, or if you can look up these rules too. Star U just puts it in like a very it puts it in a very specific place for you. But all these rules are just widely available. It's just and again, you can continue to watch these. I hate the fact that it's not working for some of you. And again, it's hard when we have a lot of students logging in from all over the world to keep track of all the devices that could be used. So on this one, this shows up in the fanboys conjunction. So we have to ask ourselves on what is happening, right? This is clearly the most important piece of punctuation. What is happening before? Anytime you see a semicolon followed by the word and or but, you can immediately eliminate it. Because a semicolon replaces that. It's either a comma and, right? Comma and, comma but, right? Those are equal to a semicolon, but you don't need a semicolon and those words. So it's one or the other, right? You either need one of these two or a semicolon, but you don't need both. And the answer is C here, against all odds, because here's what happens. We ask ourselves, advocates of fair free policies claim that the cost of these policies are largely offset by various savings. Is that a full sentence? Yes, right? So on this side of the sentence, we do in fact have a full sentence. A recent study comparing projected results of fair free policies in different cities found this outlook to be way too sunny. Right? Well, be overly optimistic probably for number 18, word choice. I think maybe. I haven't looked at it yet, but I would imagine that's the right answer. Because of the tone, right? You can kind of tell that the tone. A recent study, so that is also a full sentence, right? So here, we could have a semicolon. If this word and was eliminated, then a semicolon would have worked, but we don't need both. And because we're looking at the fanboys conjunctions, most students want to select this word however, because it sounds better, right, than the word but. But is it's much more structural in terms of, Sean, yeah, that's awesome. It is working, Sean. Hopefully, yeah, sorry guys. D is a trap, Sean, exactly right. D is a trap, guys. You don't need both. You don't need a semicolon and the word and or but. You need one or the other. So you could have put a semicolon if you eliminated the word and. Right? We have two full sentences which can be separated by a comma and a fanboys conjunction or a period or a semicolon, but not a combination of those. And C is the only one with a comma fanboys conjunction. Does everybody see that? You could have also put semicolon, however, right? However, comma. But the word however is not a fanboys conjunction, so you can't use it to make a compound sentence. Okay? And that's why, that's why, right, Muhammad? This is why you can't have however. This right here works. Okay? Comma, however, when separating two full sentences, does not work. If there's a full sentence on the left of however and there's a full sentence on the right of however, that does not work. Okay, and that is also a question that we see often, the difference between however and the word but. We see that exact question very often. It's very often missed because however does sound better, and that's the key with these rules, right? We got to get away from the idea that it sounds better and move on to the idea of what is the rule. And again, that's all going to be right there within Star U. If you guys look up punctuation right, you guys can, if you're having trouble logging with Google or Apple, it might be a device issue or something, so just create it manually. I think that should work. Sean, hopefully that worked for you. If that was the fix, Sean, just let me know so I can communicate that to everybody else if you logged in manually. But otherwise, I'm not sure exactly what's happening. But does that all make sense, guys? How important those rules are? Let me just go back real quick because I want to get to the other two sections and I didn't want to make this video too long. Okay, but after a colon, so right now I'll rewrite these here. We talked about all the first three, right? These are what you're looking for in the answer choices. Period, semicolon, right? These are all in the answer choices. 3 was a colon. We now know the rules for all 3 of those. The next one is a dash, okay? And I'll say this, each one of these, the reason we have you guys look at those first is there's only one rule for those 3. With a dash, there are 2 rules, and the final one, which is what everybody wants to start off looking at, the comma, has like 10 rules, which is why we look at it last. And most of the time when you see a comma, you don't even need to look at the comma because the right answer has nothing to do with the comma. You can eliminate other answer choices before looking at that one, and then the comma's right by default, right? And so a dash has 2 rules. A dash can do one of 2 things. It can have 2 dashes, which would replace 2 commas, right, where you have a phrase in the middle. Who's seen that before? Thumbs up if you've seen that. Yeah, guys, you can all watch this at a later time. This will be posted on our channel. So if you subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications, then every time we do one of these live streams, you'll get a notification when the recorded video is uploaded as soon as we're done with the live stream. So I encourage you guys to turn on notifications so that you guys know when all of our videos are coming out. But if you subscribe, at the very least, you'll know that. So a dash can have a phrase. That's the first rule, right? Just like 2 commas. Okay, or a dash can actually also replace a colon. So you can have a full sentence with a dash, full sentence, followed by a dash, and then something else. So it's equal to a colon at some points. Is that cool? Yeah, guys, Rabab, I'm going to go over pronouns and apostrophes too. That's why I'm trying to get through it. But I highly encourage you guys to look through the punctuation chapter. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? So you can either have 2 dashes, right? 2 dashes, which are equal to 2 commas, which there's a phrase usually in between here, right? Something that's non-essential. Or a dash is equal, or a dash is equal to a colon. Okay, so a dash and a colon can also be equal. I'm not exactly sure why you would use a dash in replacement of a colon, but you can, and they do test you on that from time to time. So again, a dash has 2 rules. These are the 2 times a dash can appear on the SAT in replacement of 2 commas or in the replacement of a colon. So if you look at a dash and you see that in the answer choices, you should have already either eliminated these, right, 1, 2, and 3 if those have already appeared. And if now you're down to your dash rules, you're just looking for those 2. Would a colon, could I replace these 2 dashes with 2 commas? If the answer is yes, then those 2 dashes are right. Can I replace this with a colon? If the answer to that question is yes, based on our colon rule, right, full sentence before it, then that's right. Does that all make sense? Can everybody give me a thumbs up? Cameron, what do you mean, like a transition with like the word however? You can use the word however or though or therefore at the end of a sentence as long as a comma is preceding it. And then finally, guys, there's a million different comma rules, so we're not going to go over those all today. But again, I encourage you to look up Star U because the comma rules are in there. It's very, to give you an example, things like comma rules will come up like you need a dependent to an independent clause, you do need a comma, right? But if you have the exact same 2 independent and dependent clauses, but the independent is first, you don't need a comma, right? That's a good example of what they would test you on. Yeah, we can try one more punctuation question, then I do want to move on. Fortunately, the other 2 don't show up nearly as often, the pronouns and the apostrophes. Let me see if I can find another one. Here's one, right? So number 30 on test number 9. I may have missed a few while I was scrolling through really quickly. Let's see. The photo is then immersed. So we have commas here. Do we have anything else? We have periods at the end of each one. So the period's not going to be effective. So let's start with our dash, right? And again, in this case, we don't have 2 dashes. Okay? We don't have 2 dashes. Yeah, and this one's kind of tricky. This one, technically speaking, guys, and I know I said this. BJ, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the upbeat nature of your all caps there. Guys, I promise you, for writing and language at the very least, Star U will help you tremendously. Obviously, it's ours, but we write, everybody that writes this stuff on Star U is all current SAT tutors. Like, we're writing this and updating it as we see new tests. As we do these real-time videos, we're updating Star U with better questions, new material. And on the writing and language section and on the math sections, because those are rules-based, right, you can just learn everything. You really can. If you put enough time in, you just learn everything. Writing and language is the easiest. This is a hard question, guys, because I know I said with the dash, it's like a colon, full sentence, right, beforehand. But having said that, you don't, with this word to, that's a preposition, so you really don't want to use a dash in that situation. This one probably should just be D to give it a protective finish. You really don't need any punctuation there. And again, the one thing that I'll leave you guys with the punctuation and with the writing and language section as a whole is to keep it simple, right? Don't use punctuation if you don't need to. If every answer choice has punctuation, then obviously you're going to have to use a punctuation mark, right? But keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. This one's hard because this preposition word to. If you read this, does everybody see technically, in conclusion, it is coated with lavender oil? If I put a dash there, right, and I look at the left and I say, can that be a colon? That technically is a full sentence. But we really don't use any punctuation when we have a preposition, right? You don't use punctuation with a preposition, typically, in like 99% of cases. Okay, does that all make sense? Thumbs up again, guys, if that makes sense. Is that all good? Okay, so that's great. And like I said, if star you guys can access all this. Yeah, Rabab, this is a hard one because of this word too. It's a longer reason for why we can't use it, but it's one of the rare instances where we don't have a full sentence, where we do have a full sentence on the left. When you see the word to or about, right? You look up the preposition. No, you can use dashes at the end of a sentence. You use one dash at the end of the sentence when a full sentence comes before it. Let's not get too caught up in this one, guys. I know that I'm not going to be able to spend too much time on this because I do want to try to keep this to an hour video just for anybody that's watching this after. Exactly, guys. When there appears one dash, it means it can be replaced with a colon. If it appears two dashes, it's two commas. So just think of it that way. A dash can either be replaced by a colon. Can a colon, would we put a colon here? No, probably not, right? Keep it simple. Or a dash, if there's two of them, can be replaced by two commas. So that's how you're thinking about it. A dash is equal to a colon if there's one of them, or it's equal to two commas if there's two of them in the sentence. Okay, so let's go back real quick, guys. There's two more that I want to talk about. Fortunately, these aren't going to take us nearly as long. Okay, look how much we have written there for punctuation. I mean, that speaks to how important the punctuation section is. So let's take a few more notes. So that was punctuation, right? That was the first one I wanted to talk about. Okay. The second one, which is also a prominent free chapter within Star U, okay, is what we call pronouns. Okay, pronouns. And the key with pronouns is that you have to remember what a pronoun does. Because if you remember what it does and then you just memorize what is a pronoun, right? Like what the pronouns are. There's only probably 20, no, not even, maybe 15 pronouns in the English language. Okay, there's only 15 of them. So if you just remember that a pronoun replaces a noun, and then you identify those within the answer choices, right? If you just remember that rule alone, and these pronoun questions will come up on every SAT writing and language section, just like the punctuation does, but it's probably not as prominent. There's not as many of them. But if you remember that a pronoun replaces a noun, and then you can identify the pronoun question, all you have to ask yourself is which noun is it replacing? Okay, so as we were scrolling through on the punctuation, I already saw a pronoun question right here. So number 4, like as an example, on number 4, I recognize right away that all of these are pronouns. Right? All of these answer choices are pronouns. Can everybody see that? And so if you recognize that the answer choices are pronouns, you know that's a pronouns question. And that's where I want you to get. If you see punctuation in the answer choices, you know that's a punctuation question. Okay, so we're asking ourselves, these are all pronouns, right? So now what pronoun is being replaced, right? Or what noun is being replaced? Because that's the only rule of a pronoun. It replaces a noun somewhere earlier in the text. So here it says, so again, guys, we're talking about pronouns, and there's a lesson chapter for those that haven't seen it yet. If you guys are interested, right? All you have to do to know everything there is to possibly know in the SAT Writing and Language section about pronoun, all you have to do is click pronouns and then read through this. Are you going to get enough out of today's lesson to know everything about pronouns? No. But that's because we're only talking about 3 sections in an hour. If you read through this in coordination with this video lesson, can you know everything there is to know about pronouns? Absolutely. Is there any sense to say that you can't do really well on this? Do I know these things because I'm way smarter than you? Absolutely not. And it drives me crazy, again, when teachers act like they're the authority on something that is learned when you're in 3rd grade. It's like, great, you know more than me about 3rd grade pronouns, right? I'm not going to go around bragging about that. That's not that cool, right? You guys are 16, 17, 18 years old. I don't think you're going to go tell your friends that you know a ton about pronoun usage, okay, or punctuation usage, right? It's not something you say out loud. So why would I say that that's like a cool thing? Is it important for the SAT? Absolutely. Do I want you guys to keep doing well? Absolutely. So you should memorize those, but only because it applies to the SAT and getting better at that. Does that all make sense? Can everybody give me a thumbs up on that? All right, so let's go back and just ask ourselves, if all of these are pronouns and I can identify that quickly within the answer choices, let me see what it replaces. Okay, so let's go back and read. The bacteria have evolved to use hydrogen sulfide instead of sunlight for the energy that drives their metabolic process, their processes. For the energy that drives their metabolic processes. And hydrothermal venting, geez, I picked the one sentence that has like the biggest word. Metabolic processes, and the hydrothermal venting is the source of the chemical soup necessary to support. Okay, support what? Okay, well, the bacteria have evolved, and this is tricky, right? Because I think that they're talking about the bacteria. Does everybody see that? So it's not him or her, right? Because it's talking, I'm 95% sure that this is talking about the bacteria. Okay, now this is tricky because on this one, bacteria, okay, bacteria is the same, both singular and plural. A bacteria or the bacteria have, right? A bacteria has. These are both the same, singular and plural. Okay, so that takes away some of these things. So it's not one, right? That doesn't make sense. But we're looking at them and it. Now, is it singular or plural? We have to ask ourselves, what this verb have, right? The word have is plural. So we know the answer has to be C. I think, I hope. Let me just confirm that real quick. Otherwise, I'm going to look terrible. That one I think makes sense. I should probably go back and read more of it. The number is this, number 4. Yeah, number 4 is C. So does everybody see that? Hey, does everybody see that? Can you give me a thumbs up? That if you identify the pronouns, there's only one rule of a pronoun, and they show up on every test multiple times. Not as often as punctuation, but still multiple times. That if you see pronouns in the answer choices, you have to go back and just find the noun that it's replacing and to just make it agree, right? Let's see if we can find another pronoun there. Pronouns are really, really, really straightforward and really easy if you identify them properly. 15. Number 15 is a pronoun here. This one looks like it's going to be a little bit harder. Okay, so we ask ourselves, right, as we read through this. Let me erase some of this because we already did 14. Oops. Okay. As a 2014 study by the KTH Rowan Technology Student found the car trafficking time was down less than 3% since it was enacted. This is a really tricky one. Yeah, this is live right now, Mark, but it's going to be recorded. Okay, so it's going to be D, the policy. Because again, if we see pronouns, we need to know which noun this replaces. A lot of times, this is another little trick, right? If you guys are looking through these pronoun questions, if we have 3 answer choices that are all pronouns, and 1 answer choice that's a noun, does everybody see that? Can you give me a thumbs up if you guys see that there are 3 answer choices, A, B, and C, with A being it, and that, and 1 are all pronouns. You guys can, those are all just listed out in the pronoun section of Star U as well. and the answer choice D is the policy, 95% of the time, this is going to be the right answer. Because what they're trying to test you on is to see if you can identify what the pronoun is. And if I go back and read, as a 2014 study by the Royal Institute of Technology and Student found that the car traffic in town was down less than 3% since it was enacted. Well, is it the car traffic that was enacted? Is it the study that was enacted? Or is it the policy, which is going to be somewhere up here? Right? This is talking about the fare free policy, right, that they talked about. And so if you see that, that's another little trick, that if you see one answer choice with a noun, the policy, versus 3 answer choices with pronouns, the answer choice 95% of the time that's right is the one that's the noun. A little trick, but does everybody see why the rule applies there? That these pronouns, A, B, and C, they're not applying to anything. If we go back and look and ask ourselves which, right, we can't point to the bacteria like we did in number 4. There is no bacteria noun to point to for any of those 3 answer choices. So we have to restate the noun because we've already mentioned numerous nouns, right? That's why this works. We're talking about studies, that's a noun. We're talking about car traffic, that's a noun. We're talking about town, which is a proper noun. But there's too many things, so we have to restate the noun. We can't use a pronoun in that instance. Does that make sense? That's a hard question. It's called ambiguous pronouns, but also found within Star U in this exact same format, talking about the exact same things that I'm talking about now. Everybody good on pronoun usage? It's pretty straightforward. If you remember that a pronoun replaces a noun, and you go into Star U and you identify, okay? Yeah, guys, I might try to do tense, but I'm trying to stick to just these 3 rules today because they're the most important. Tense as it relates to verb tense, like it's a little tricky because on number 4, I didn't want to get into tense, right? But the word have actually told us that it was them instead of it. That's the only reason I even brought in the verb. But I'm going to try to stick to not talking about verb tense and subject-verb agreement. However, if you're interested, those are both within the app as well. So if you look at Star U, guys, and this doesn't have to just be relegated to the 3 lessons that I'm talking about today. If you're interested in this stuff and you click verb tense and you want to learn it, you feel like you're struggling with verb tense, you can always go back and read about verb tense, and we talk about the perfect, the present, right? The past perfect, all that kind of stuff as well. Does that make sense? So I won't get into it today, but the written content is all there. And then if you're interested, you can pay $5 to get access to the Smart Bubble Sheet. Okay? If you guys are interested, I'd encourage you to take a look at the Smart Bubble Sheet as well. And you guys can see what it does by watching this video. But it will actually, if you plug in your answers to real SAT tests, okay, if you plug in your answers to real SAT tests, again, it's $5 a month, so I realize that there's a payment thing here. But in terms of buying a book versus using the Smart Bubble Sheet, the Smart Bubble Sheet is going to help you 99% of the time, better than any book could, because you actually plug in your answers to real tests. Let me give you a quick example, and we'll jump back to the last part with apostrophes. Okay, guys, if you do want to pay $5 a month, and again, if you're buying a book, I highly recommend not buying a book. If you're thinking about buying a book, don't buy the book and just do this for $5 a month, because you can go in here on Smart Bubble Sheet, you can click yes, right, I have my test. If you paid the $5, you can click SAT. In this exact SAT test number 9, if I click writing and language, I can go through the 44 questions on test number 9. I can submit my answers for the practice test that I took, and then we will provide you with very specific suggested practice, right? If you come up here and you click SAT, and then you click for suggested practice at the top, all of these answers, you can see that I've only taken ACT tests on here, are based on the questions that I missed on my SAT test number 9, or in this case it was the ACT. But if you submit your answers there for $5 and you subscribe to Star U, $5 a month, I guarantee you're going to learn more. And then you click pronouns, right? And now all of a sudden the app tells you which questions you're most often missing, and you can go do your pronoun section there. Does that make sense? So again, if you're considering a book, I highly recommend not buying the book for $50, because $5 a month, you could do that for 8 months and still be less than the $50 book. And I think it's going to be infinitely more helpful. That's just my opinion, but I would highly recommend doing that for $5 a month instead of purchasing a book, because it gives you specific customized practice with all of these lesson plans that I just mentioned. Okay, so check that out if you guys have time. All you have to do is click Smart Bubble Sheet on the home screen and you'll see that. The final question, the final type of grammar that I want to talk about today is apostrophes. Okay, and really understanding apostrophe rules. Apostrophes don't come up nearly as often. I should say too, guys, the $5 a month, just real quick as I'm thinking about it, the $5 a month, if you're already scoring really highly on the SAT or the ACT, the $5 a month also gets you access to all of our advanced content. So if you're already scoring really well and you're looking to like take the next step into the hardest question types, for somebody that was asking about vocabulary earlier, right, all of the hardest questions, if you pay the $5, you also get access to all of the advanced content, okay, within the app. So these are the hardest questions, hardest question types. So again, not to push you guys to pay money, but if you're going to buy a book, then this is going to be way better than the book. It's our entire book customized to you for $5. So just again, think about that if you guys are interested. Okay, is that cool, guys? Can everybody give me a thumbs up there? The final thing I want to talk about today is apostrophes and confused words. Again, this is a lesson chapter within Star U. Okay, apostrophes and confused words. It's very important that you know your apostrophe rules. Okay, so when do certain things, with apostrophes, you want to remember that apostrophes only show up within contractions. In the English language, they show up with contractions. Okay, contractions. And they show up as possession, right? And this is, again, all in the lesson chapter on Star U. Possession, right? So possession. Sorry, guys, it's Monday. Okay, possession. So if you go to an apostrophes question, you want to go through, and again, these are really, the reason that apostrophes are great is because they're so easy to identify, right? Like right away, I know number 10. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if you guys see why number 10 is really easy to identify? Right away, we know this is going to be an apostrophes question because lo and behold, they all have apostrophes in them, right? Not every other question has an apostrophe. And if you memorize your apostrophe rules, there's probably 2 apostrophes questions, 2 out of 44 total questions, which is a lot. And again, these are all rules-based. So let's go through it and just talk about why we're selecting certain answers. Okay? So whenever we see an apostrophe on the outside of an S, right? So like this, worlds, like we do here, okay, on number 10. Whenever we see that, that means that the worlds, right, is plural. Okay? Whatever the possession, it's plural possession. Okay? So the word that comes after it, oceans, right, needs to be plural. If we have an S, if we have an apostrophe on the outside of the S, it means that this word on the next word has to be plural. So let's see, is this next word plural? As the carbon dioxide level in Earth's atmosphere rises, the world's oceans support, let's see. The world's oceans, right, because it's multiple oceans. So that means that this should be plural, meaning that we don't need the apostrophe there. Does that make sense? So this is so we can't eliminate A, but we can eliminate anything that has an apostrophe inside of the S. Because if you say worlds, right, worlds with an apostrophe S like this is singular possession, meaning the word that comes after it is singular. Okay, so if you see the world like this and the apostrophe S, right, that means it's singular possession. And so that means that if A is right, then B and C cannot be right. And then we look at D, yes, we have oceans as plural, but we don't have an apostrophe at all, so answer choice for number 10 has to be A. It's plural, right? Whose oceans is it? It's the world, so it's possessing. The world is possessing its oceans, right? So it is possession. We need some type of apostrophe on worlds, but because oceans it should be plural, there's multiple oceans in the world, right? We know that it has to be an apostrophe outside of the S in worlds. Wait, is that right? No. Wait. Sorry, guys. No. That's not right. It's not it. Sorry, guys. No. It should be, how many worlds are there? Sorry, it's not the word. It is, everything that I just said is right, but that's not right. I'm an idiot. Sorry. I'm an idiot. It should be C, right? It's got to be C. Because the answer is how many, the worlds needs to be, is there multiple worlds, not is there multiple oceans. Oceans still needs to be plural here, right? Oceans needs to be plural because there's multiple oceans, but how many worlds are there? Are there multiple oceans on multiple worlds? No, there's one world, right? According to this context, so the answer has to be C. One world with multiple oceans. So oceans is plural, worlds is possessing those oceans, but there's only one world. Does that make sense? Everything I just mentioned with apostrophe outside of it like this is true, but there's only one world. So that's singular possession. There's one world. There's something singular is possessing something else versus multiple worlds. There's plural, right? Something possessing. In any case, all of this is described probably better than I just did on Star U, so I highly encourage you guys to check out Star U. But those are the three, guys. If you can memorize the following, right? Punctuation, number one. You have to get punctuation down. It's the single most important lesson chapter. So think about this. I've done this for a long time. Single most important lesson chapter on Star U by far. It's super easy. It's only 7 pages. Once you start it, it's not very hard to understand what's going on. It's not like math, where some of the math chapters, especially if you don't like math, can be difficult. Okay? It's not like math. This is the single most important lesson chapter within Star U. That's not hyperbole. That's very, very true. The next one is pronouns. You guys memorize pronouns, specifically that it replaces a noun. If you can identify those, these aren't very hard questions, and they show up on every SAT. Okay, replaces a noun. And then apostrophes. These are very often missed by students. You guys just saw that before I caught myself, I was about to miss that question. These also show up on every test, and they're a little bit harder. But between these 3 sections, if you memorize those 3, those show up on every single SAT from now until the end of the time, right? They've already shown up on every test for the last 5 years. You are guaranteeing that as you start the writing and language section, that you've already answered 12 out of 44 questions before you even start. Does that make sense? Guys, yeah, if you're interested in the membership program, if you're interested in any of our membership programs, you do get 10 free lessons. You can either do that on Star U, or you can look at this link. Okay, you get 10 lessons if you sign up for the membership. Again, the same lessons are available on Star U, but the materials are a little bit better laid out on Star U. So, Shivam, you can either click this link and sign up for the memberships, or if you want to do it through Star U, you click recorded video lessons, and you get 10 lessons, 10 SAT lessons that break down every section like we did today, but in much more detail. 10 SAT lessons in much more detail. So I encourage you guys to look at one of those too. Yeah, Praneeth, exactly. The second noun will not be possessive. Will never be possessive. Or 99% of the time it won't be possessive. You could technically have a possession, and then another noun. But for now, let's just say that 99% of the time, only the first word will possess the second one. Shivam, did that make sense? So again, you can, if you guys are interested for our membership program, you can click recorded lessons on the app on Star U. Just click recorded lessons on the homepage of your student account. Or if you're interested, you can also click that link. It's listed in the description below this video as well. And you can join our membership program, which gives you 10 SAT lessons covering each section of the test in great detail over 2 hours. We have 2 hours per lesson, so you get 20 hours of content. Today we went through 1 hour, so you guys can kind of see how much more expansive those 10 lessons can be. Does that make sense? Shivam, if you've seen every one of our videos, right, and you've gone through it, the nice thing about the membership program, if you're interested, is that you do get, it's a more organized content. So you get like very specific details like we did today on every section of the test, and it's even longer in duration. So check it out if you're interested. It's $30 a month. And like I said, guys, we tried to price the membership and the Smart Bubble Sheet. So Smart Bubble Sheet is $5 a month, and the recorded video lessons, which include the Smart Bubble Sheet that I mentioned, those are $30 a month. So $30, really, it's like $25 a month because you have the Smart Bubble Sheet as well. But if you do one of those two things, the difference between those and buying a book, I think, is not even close. So if you have the money to buy a book, I would highly recommend just doing Smart Bubble Sheet instead, because it customizes. If you plug in your answers from any real SAT test, right? Any real SAT test, you click Smart Bubble Sheet, it's SAT, right? I click yes, right? Got it. And then I click, these are SAT test number 5 from the SAT web, from College Board. And you plug in your answers from that actual bubble sheet. And then when you go back, right, and you go to the home screen, you have all of your suggested practice for you individually on this suggested practice from lessons. Yeah, Praneeth, it doesn't happen. The first noun will always be possessive. So sorry to confuse you. The first noun will always be possessive. The question is whether or not there's a first noun possessive and the second noun is possessive. But the first noun will always 100% of the time be possessive. It will always have the apostrophe on the first noun at the very least. Again, guys, if you're interested, you can click Smart Bubble Sheet, SAT, yes, got it. You can plug in your answers to real practice tests, and then when you go back and you click Lessons and Practice Problems on the home screen, the suggested practice will tell you individually what you need to work on most. And then, Shivam, if you're interested, if you click Recorded Video Lessons and then you click SAT, right, this is for the $30 a month. You can also click the YouTube membership there. If you click SAT lesson number 2, for example, here's a very detailed list of what we go through, right, in terms of SAT lesson number 2. So you guys can watch the video of me teaching that class. I teach all the classes if you guys are interested. Okay? So, in any case, guys, I hope that all made sense. I do want to sign off just so we're not too overboard on time here. But if you guys have any questions, as always, please make sure that you just comment below this video. Hopefully we knocked out the 3 most important grammar rules today. Hopefully that was helpful in terms of your own preparation. And like I said, you guys can always continue to work on this stuff on Star U. The 3 lessons are listed right here on the writing and language section. Pronouns, right? Subject, verb, pronouns, punctuation, and apostrophes and confused words. So check those out. I hope that was helpful, guys. Again, please. Yeah, Sean, math repeats the same topics as well. So if you guys are interested in math, click SAT Math, and here are all the SAT Math. Here are the most prominent. And if you're already scoring like 650 plus on the math section, then you guys can look at our advanced stuff, which gives you a whole bunch of more worksheets. If you click advanced and you're willing to purchase that for $5, you get like 4,000 more practice problems with additional worksheets covering every topic for the SAT Math section. All right, guys. So yeah, Sean, but in any case, all of the basic SAT Math will help you with all of the most common concepts shown up on the SAT, that show up on the SAT. All right, guys. So again, I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys learned a lot today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you're interested in joining the membership program, please do. Please make sure that you download Star U for free and create a free student account so you have access to all this content. And again, please make sure that you help us spread the word. We'd love it if you guys could tell your friends, and just which would allow us to make more of these videos. And if you guys have the means to join the membership program, that obviously helps us as well. Okay, so we'll keep making these. But in any case, guys, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great night wherever you are in the world. Have a great day, night, morning, whatever. And we'll be back with more lessons this week. So look out for it on the channel. Make sure you turn on all notifications so you guys can see that on the channel. All right, guys, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.